Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
We're going to get started in 1 minute. Well, good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Sherri Johnson. I'm founder of the Institute for Health and Social Equity. And thank you so much for being here tonight, whether you are a student or an educator or an early careerist or a longtime advocate for the next generation of healthcare and STEM leaders. Your presence in this conversation matters. Tonight is the official kickoff to our 2026 scholarship cycle. So the Institute exists because we believe that zip code should never determine access to education, to healthcare, or to opportunity. And the work of opening pathways into nursing, STEM, public service requires more than one voice. It requires the voices of the people who are walking in those paths right now, the ones who walked them recently and the ones lighting the way for others. So that's what tonight is about. Over the next hour, you will hear from a remarkable group of panelists across three cohorts: rising students who are entering the field, early career professionals shaping it now, and educators and experts who are mentoring the next generation. They'll share what's getting in the way, what's making the difference, and what it looks like to build a more equitable workforce together. I also want to acknowledge that we are gathered during National Apprenticeship Week, a fitting moment for tonight's conversation. I'd like to turn things over to our moderators, Annika Desai, who is our board chair, and Santina Johnson, who is our board vice chair, who will guide us through the discussion. Annika and Santina, the floor is yours.
Hey, great. Thank you, everyone. First, I would like to thank everyone for joining today. We're going to have a very exciting panel, so I'm glad that everyone could make it in the time. But starting off to our first questions, I'd love to start with a personal turning point. Looking back, was there a specific moment that made you think I can actually do this? A person that believed in you, a program that opened a door, or an opportunity that changed your trajectory? So, Kennedy, since you're in this right now, can you take us to that moment for you?
And before we answer questions, why don't we introduce each other? Why don't we start with that first?
Oh, apologies, my network was being off. I'm so sorry for that. I thought that.
Okay.
But yeah, so apologies everyone for that. Um, to start off with introductions, my name is Annika Desai. I'm currently the board chair of the Institute for Health and Social Equity. Just a little bit about me. So I did my undergrad in pharmaceutical and healthcare business at the University of Sciences. And I recently completed my master's at St. Joseph's in informatics. Currently, I work as a strategic account manager at Syncora, which is a pharmaceutical wholesaler, where I work in specialty GPOs, where we help negotiate drug contracts to get it cheaper for health systems. So, Santina, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, thank you. I'll do a very quick introduction of myself, and then I'll let each of the panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll start with questions. So I am Santina Johnson. I am the vice chair for the Institute. I also work in medical communications or science communication as an account manager. And I'm just so happy that you guys are here with us tonight. And I hope that you are able to take lots from this conversation. So now let's have the panelists introduce themselves. We will start with Kennedy. Okay.
Why don't we come back to Kennedy?
Kennedy, we can, okay, let's go with Dr. Odingo. Could you please introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much, Santina, and the rest of the panelists. I'm excited and really happy to be a part of this great space and part of this larger movement. My name is Dr. Rael Odengo. I use she or her pronouns. I currently work as the Director of Health Operations at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and I'm also a part-time professor at Community College of Baltimore County. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to this exciting discussion. Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Can another panelist go ahead and just introduce themselves? Krisha, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. I'm Krisha Ko. I've been a nurse for 15 years. 5 years of that, I am now a nurse practitioner in palliative medicine in Mount Sinai Hospital. And I currently work at the Rutgers School of Nursing as the developmental specialist for the Educational Opportunity Fund program. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for making time. We really appreciate that. Destiny, could you please introduce yourself next, please?
Hi, my name is Destiny Johnson. I am a second grade teacher at a charter school in New York City. I graduated with my bachelor's in human development, and now I am currently finishing my program and graduating in my master's in education. And my future goal is to be a pediatric social worker or a medical social worker.
Thank you. Awesome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hey. Perfect. Can Chisholm, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi everyone. I'm Chisholm Okiyoma. I'm a freshman nursing major at LaSalle University. Um, yeah, I'm an RA. I'm a member of ASA, a member of VSU. My future goal aspirations, I want to be a CRNA and pursue my doctorate in nurse practitioner.
Hey. Great. Shabani, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Shabani Shah. I am a graduate of Rutgers University and I majored in cell biology and neuroscience. And today I work at Johnson& Johnson MedTech in electrophysiology, which is a subspecialty of cardiology that focuses on treating patients with cardiac arrhythmias. And I also serve as a board member for the Institute. And overall, I'm very passionate about sharing my experience and encouraging students interested in pursuing careers in STEM and healthcare.
Hey, thank you. And then Kevin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Silvestrini Cordero, and thank you again to the Institute for Health and Social Equity for this opportunity. I am currently working as an assistant electrical engineer at Burns& McDonnell, an engineering consulting firm based out of Kansas City with an office in Morristown, as well as throughout the country. Currently working in substation and telecommunications work. Previously, did work in the public health space as well as in the nonprofit space through an organization called CareSpark Community Connections. And I also did serve on the board of the Institute for Health and Social Equity. And I hold my Bachelor of Science degree from NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology in Electrical Engineering, as well as a Master's in Business Administration from Seton Hall University. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to share.
course. Thank you. And then lastly, Kennedy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Kennedy Sill. I'm a civil engineering student at Rutgers University. I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I currently do a lot of leadership on campus. So I'm the mentorship chair for the National Society of Black Engineers, and I'm also a charter member, and I currently serve as the second vice president for the National Council of Negro Women. So that's a little bit about me. It's nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much. So now moving on to the questions. As I already asked, I love to start with asking for that personal turning point, looking back if there was that specific moment that made you think, I can actually do this, if there was a person that believed in you, a program that opened the door, or an opportunity that changed your trajectory. Kennedy, since you're in it right now, can you take us to that moment for you?
Yes, so I'm currently a junior in college, and being an engineering student has been, it has had its trials and tribulations. I think the moment for me, which really made me like decide that I wanted to stay in engineering was, it was during my winter break, and like my first semester at college had been very difficult, which I feel like a lot of freshmen go through. Like it was very unexpected. It's like the culture of college is so much different than high school, but I think for me, like being with my family and kind of just remembering who I am, like how much I enjoy math and how much I enjoy science, like it really made me kind of reconnect with that part of myself. And I was able to really envision myself like in those spaces, like being able, like where I would study, like the hairstyle that I would have on campus, like me walking around campus with my backpack, like really just seeing and feeling like that feeling of being on campus and really trying to put myself in that space and just, like really remembering who I am and, where I want to be after this. And it was just like, I think it was never about like if I belonged there, but more so about my ability to be there and stay in those spaces. Like my mom, I grew up seeing my mom like working on the academic side of nursing. So like I saw other Black women like in those spaces, but I think I just needed to believe it for myself that I could also like be in those spaces. So that was when it changed for me, was that trip. And sometimes you just need to get away. Sometimes you need like a second to really like think. But yeah.
Definitely. And especially having that support system of your family is so important too, especially when you're putting yourself in a new position like that, like starting school. So it's really great to hear your perspective with that. Thank you for sharing. And now, Chisholm, moving on to you. I know that you are also in a similar position with as Kennedy being a student. So, what was that turning point for you that what made this path real?
Okay, I think that I've always known I wanted to go into healthcare. Um, I think just growing up, because I'm from Plainfield, New Jersey, and I think just growing up in a city that's not that like there's kind of violence surrounding you. Whether it was like the constant lockdown drills or even when I was younger, like it was a guy, he was like it was like all over the news and everything. He was like shot outside my house, and I feel like right after that happened, there was like almost like a pause, like nobody really know what to do. Like it was like nobody knew how to help. And I feel like kind of even when I was going through like the college process and like trying to like apply to schools and like just think about my major, I feel like I always knew it was like healthcare because I feel like even like after college and like once I'm like certified and everything, I feel like I've always wanted to kind of give back, whether it was like do trainings to just like kind of have like basic skills and just so like that doesn't happen again. And like, God forbid, but like you rather be prepared. And I
Mhm.
feel like just like that moment, I kind of just thought about that and it kind of like comes back. So like anytime like, I have an anatomy test and I'm like, ooh, like, it's kind of getting a little lot. Like I just kind of think back like, you have a goal, like you have a purpose and like, trying to keep pushing. So
Wow, no, that's an incredible story. And having those experiences and knowing that one common thing is that can bring you back is so important. So thank you for sharing. And now, Shabani, you started off at the pharmacy counter and now you're at J&J. So when did it click for you how this path and your journey is real for you?
Yeah, thanks. So I honestly would say that I don't think it was necessarily like a single moment. I feel like it was more so like a culmination of moments through like being a student to where I am today in the workforce. But definitely like starting off in high school, I developed a knack for the sciences and I wanted to sort of challenge myself. I wanted to take like AP courses. So I would take the AP courses in bio, chem, physics, and it was definitely my science teachers as well that continually encouraged me. And they made a huge impact on my high school academic experience. And honestly, that was like the first introduction to me considering some career related to STEM healthcare. And then segueing into college, I'm thrown into the classes. They're definitely tough, especially if you're aware and you've been a STEM major in college. They're not easy, but I did find a certain sense of fulfillment through challenging myself. And it was definitely through those classes I realized like I was able to do hard things, like taking organic chemistry. If you know, you know. So yeah, and then also through college, I definitely made a lot of friends who were also interested in pursuing a career in STEM. So I think just like being in that space where I was surrounded by such intelligent, hardworking people, that definitely pushed me to want to work a lot harder and seek out a career for myself uh, that would align with that environment. So yeah, like Annika mentioned, during college, I also worked as a pharmacy technician, and this was during the pandemic, so kind of a crazy experience. But it was through this experience, which was also the first job I had that was patient interacting, patient facing. Uh, it was truly the first time I realized how passionate I was about healthcare and specifically wanting to help improve patients' lives. So, yeah, that's like a basic summary of like how I ended up where I am today. And there's definitely like a lot more moments I've missed, but I think a huge part of what shaped my interest was through the classes I took, the people I met, and just the overall experiences as a student.
That's great. And I feel like, as you were explaining, there was like a lot of motivation behind it. And I think that's a very important takeaway that we constantly should be improving and bettering ourselves. And the challenges, it might seem hard in the moment, but there's so much benefits throughout your life. And like you said, now you're in your early career stage, yet you're still thinking about those moments in high school that challenged you. And now it's brought you here where you are today. So it's really great to hear. And now, lastly, going to Kevin. So, you reinvented your career midstream, moving into engineering after a decade of administration. So, looking back, what was that moment for you that made you believe that this is possible for me?
Thank you again. And similar to Shabani's response, it was definitely a culmination of various moments, as well as just being comfortable with being uncomfortable and really exploring what I saw myself doing. And advice that I received that which was very helpful for me in helping me choose was, what did you want to do as a little kid? What was that thing that always interested you as a child? And somehow we already know what we want to do. And I always been interested in electronics and infrastructure, and I'd always been fascinated with what was behind these substation yards, all this equipment that pretty much helped power our entire uh, our civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, for me, the work that I did in public health at the nonprofit Care Spark Community Connections, which was a big period where I was challenged, as well as I was exposed to various individuals within the healthcare field. And really, that was where I learned, and this was a really powerful moment for me was anything that you set your mind to, you can accomplish. And before in high school, when I took the SAT, when I think it was a 2400, I think I scored like a 1450 or 1460. And I thought math, I could never do math.
Mhm.
However, you can always, anything you set your mind to, you can do. And that just requires practice, patience, investing the time, as well as just having a drive and a desire to do it. And so that's what I did. I just set my mind to it and went and proceeded through with a lot of help along the way. And I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Anything that you can set your mind to, you can do. And also, like what you said about being comfortable with the uncomfortable, putting yourself in those situations that you're not necessarily great at. I can relate to you. I was never great at math. Ask anyone, but yet here I am today in an industry where I use math every day. But it's amazing what you can do. So thank you for sharing that. But I just want to thank you guys for starting us there. What I'm struck by is how often the moment isn't one big dramatic event. It's a culmination of things. It's someone offering encouragement, a program creating access, or a first real opportunity that turns into a possibility of something concrete. And that's a message for everyone in the room tonight, that your path doesn't have to look perfect to be real. Progress isn't linear. It often starts with one door opening and the courage to walk through it. So, with that as our foundation, I'm going to hand it over to Santina Johnson to guide us into our next question.
Awesome. Thank you, Annika. And thank you all for sharing those stories. To the audience, feel free in the chat to write down or capture something that stuck out to you or to add your own little story. It's a conversation. But I think that one thing we're hearing is that access matters, yes, but support also matters. It's not just enough for us to enter these spaces, but we also need the right environment, the right resources, and the encouragement to continue. So kind of shifting from this conversation where we're focusing on individual journeys, I want to focus on the systems around those journeys. So from the work you do now, what do you wish more institutions understood about what underrepresented students actually need to succeed in healthcare, STEM, and related fields? Dr. Odingo, I'd love to start with you. From your perspective, what do institutions sometimes miss when they talk about supporting underrepresented students? This one is for Dr. Odingo.
It
I think
looks like
Dr.
she
Odingo's
might.
having some connectivity
Can you hear
issues.
me
So
now?
yes, we can.
Yes, sorry. I think those my network has some minor issues.
Oh,
So
it's
let me
fine.
share some interesting aspects. So I was sharing the flyer with my students in class, and I told them, you know what, it's going to be a great opportunity for you to watch your professor from the other side. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
talking to this, panel of great, voices and people just sharing their experiences and journey in healthcare and in the STEM world. And some of my students just said, Professor, that's a very difficult field. I do not want to get there. And I'm like, why? What's holding you back? Like they told me, I'm in college to actually just do business. And I'm like, wait a minute. What's limiting you? Just let me know what are the challenges. And it's hard. I don't want anything hard, anything that will stress me, anything that will take a lot of my strength. That is the mindset that many people have. I said, but it's doable. When we think of health care, we think of STEM, it's all that's around us. It's about our environment. There are things that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I would like you to really try and step back and try and draw that connection. That is not really technical jargon. It's not a siloed profession on its own, but it's us as professors, as faculty members, really spending a lot of time to really try and draw that in-depth connection that when you are sick and you go to the hospital, you're going there to get treatment, but it is just about your health and it's about your body. So how best do we really simplify the message and create and even normalize the discussion around being part of a healthcare training and being in the STEM world. I think that there's still a huge disconnect there, and people tend to think like these are very complex topics and very complex areas that if you do not have the bandwidth to explore, then it's just impossible for you. Then most importantly too, when you come, across students from, very underrepresented communities with a lot of baggage and barriers, then that becomes also another difficult, realm for them to really figure out, how do I even get started? And you did mention one thing that when Sherry was started the discussion is that, these choices should not be defined by zip code. But many right now live in zip codes and they automatically know that, and I don't think I'm going to do well in life. Like my path is already defined for me. Like I do not belong there. Either I belong in, I'll just have to do any odd jobs around, or just go to, maybe just go to a community college and get it there, or go and do apprenticeship, and then that is it. But how can we really broaden the knowledge? How can we really create a lot of awareness and show and demonstrate that it is doable? It is you believing in yourself, and it's you trying to really understand that the science, the STEM, the healthcare is pretty much trying to define what is actually around you. I think that is what I try to really echo and mentor my students all the time, that these are not complex topics. These are things about us. So I want you to really step back and try and connect those dots, that it is important for you to know how everything that you do, everything that is around you, pretty much ends up with you as an individual being. So when you're able to really connect that dots, it's easier for you to piece up that puzzle and know that, okay, what is the goal then of even doing it? It might benefit me at the end of the day. So you step back and say, okay, if it's something that is going to be of value for me, maybe financially and even in terms of just your overall health, when you get into healthcare, then why not give it a try? So really looking at the language and how we really frame some of this information is something that I think has been lacking a lot. But I encourage, the voices as part of this panel to really step back and say, it is doable. We can do it. And finding a way to really mentor and hold, the hands of people who are struggling out there, the people who've lost hope in life, the people who believe that my zip code is already zip coded and I cannot move beyond my zip code. I think the knowledge is there and the belief is there, and it's us to really drive that, to allow them to really create that space to think differently and also just make that leap and get into the healthcare and STEM world too.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Odenga. I really appreciate that perspective. Our environment matters, but how we take hold of that and connect all of our individual pieces to make our puzzle, that really sticks with me. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to ask Krisha, I'd love to bring you in here. You've seen this work up close through student support and pathway building. What does meaningful support look like when it is actually working?
So, one thing that I wish more institutions understood was that, one shoe size does not fit all. We all go through, there are many people who go through many hurdles, even just to get into college. I'm going to speak from the heart. I will say that I wish I had known back in the day that admission offices are actually very welcoming. They're almost like an emergency room. They can't turn you down. So if you are a high school student, a parent, or just a student who's willing to transfer different majors, they are willing to help you or guide you to the right person that you need to hear. And I wish I had known that as someone who is the first person to go to college in their family, just to help that navigating that process. It would have made it a lot easier. Something I wish I had known also before my second year of high school was I wish I had known about the Educational Opportunity Fund program. And, it's a state-funded program that many universities have. Um, and I wish I had known that before my parents told me in my second year of high school, I'm sorry, I don't think we can take you to college because we really can't afford it. you know. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's heard that before in these kind of spaces. And to have heard that in my second year of high school, I carried that heaviness with me only up until my senior guidance counselor, Brother Joseph. He told me to check that EOF box on my FAFSA, and he shared, he really opened that door to me for the Educational Opportunity Fund. And I'm so happy that, Rutgers Nursing accepted me to EOF. And through that EOF, I really got that support and that family and that feeling of belonging through that program. They gave me a grant that helped cover a lot of my tuition. They gave me, paid for support classes so I can stay on track. I was matched with a guidance counselor to help guide me what courses to take so that I could stay on track to meet my degree requirements. And it really gave me a community of support and telling me that I belong there. I belong in a university. This is where I'm supposed to be. Even if your own family says you cannot, right? I think there are things that can open up for everybody. There are resources in higher education that will open up doors to everyone. And I can say I'm living proof of that. I'm a practicing
Yes, you
MD
are.
now, practicing nurse practitioner now, and there's, you guys can. You can do this, and you deserve it, and you belong.
Thank you, Krisha. That was awesome. Um, I think that systems could do a lot more when it comes to personalizing the approach. Just hearing your story made me think about my own journey. Learning about the admission office, learning about the different resources for a first generational student, it changed things for me. I had no point of reference. There was no one before me and my family I could reach out to and call and say, hey, how do I do this? So you're right. Having that support, having that family-like connection is really needed. So thank you so much for sharing your experience, and thank you so much for giving back. Right. So I just really appreciate that. So now I want us to take an even further look back, because so much of this begins long before college. We heard some of our panelists touch on it when they were introducing themselves. So I'm going to go to Destiny. Destiny, you're working with second graders, children who are years away from thinking about college majors or careers. But we know from experience that confidence and exposure and expectations, that those things start really early. So, from what you see in the classroom, Destiny, what do you wish that people making decisions about healthcare and STEM education, what do you wish they understood about those earliest years of learning, what we call those formative years?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely feel like everything starts within the classroom. I know that with my second graders, we are definitely learning more about science and math, and definitely seeing if those subjects are for them, and trying to have more confidence and trying to build that confidence. So I feel like being intentional about what like the students are experiencing within those years can definitely shape how they see themselves. Because I feel like without those like experiences, they're not building that curiosity or confidence whatsoever. Because I also feel like as well, exposing them to different types of STEM and math can help them, be more confident whether or not, okay, math is for me, science is for me. Because I feel like the visible ones, such as just, regular nursing, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's also forensic science, there's biomedical engineering, environmental sciences, data science, or other fields amongst both math and science that they're not just limited to just one thing. Because I realized even in my own classroom that some kids may struggle with like basic math, but are great with coding. So giving that opportunity and room for, hands-on experiences, venturing out, show that there's different type of visible paths within those STEMs.
I love that. So I just have a quick follow-up. Like, What do you see as a teacher? What helps a child start to believe? You kind of touched on it, even at this age, that they are capable of becoming a scientist, a nurse, an educator, or a leader.
So you're basically asking me what helps bring that confidence?
Yeah, just how do you, I mean, you're already doing it, right? You kind of touched on it already, but like, what things kind of reinforce that confidence that you're building in the classroom by exposing them to different things?
I think also representation matters as well because I'm in a community where it's minority Spanish and Black. So showing them different types of people in those fields that are very successful and be like, this could be you, like definitely building that confidence and building that love where it's just like, yes, it may be hard right now, but as you get older, you might find what you like and you might have that passion for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Destiny. That is it's an important reminder that the pathway does not begin in college. I know when we get older, we always think like, oh, this is like, what I have to do, have to have it all figured out. But that's not true. It begins much earlier with what people are exposed to, what they experienced, and then, being encouraged to imagine or being exposed to, like you said, different types of things. And that helps them feel more capable. Thank you so, so much. I want us to move to our final panel question. And this one is really for the students and early career professionals listening tonight. So, if there is a student in the audience tonight who is quietly wondering whether they really belong in this field, what would you want them to hear? So, Kevin, I'd like to start with you. Your journey is a reminder that the path does not have to be 1, 2, 3, perfectly linear in order for it to be meaningful. So, what would you say to the student who feels unsure, behind, or that's just still trying to find their place?
Great. Yeah, definitely expose yourself as much, volunteer as much as possible. That is one of the best things to get yourself out there and meet new people. Dr. Odango spoke to it, and even in Destiny. One, relationships matter. I was taught that very early on. Relationships matter, and you don't know what doors will be open up to you. And exposing yourself to different types with this whole AI boom, the industry is changing, the type of work is changing, just learning how to take on different skills. And it's a matter of how you feel and if this is something that you're passionate about that drives you. And having that hands on experience is so crucial. The degree, it matters. And also having that practical experience is so important. And anything that you do, just invest the time, put the work in, and you'll be able to accomplish it, anything that you set your mind to. For myself, I was in that same position. I was 28. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go, what direction I wanted to take, and just had to do a soft reset and go forth. But it also requires having a great support system. And I had a great group of people around me that really helped, who believed in me and who helped set the pathway for me to take this next step. So it's a journey. Never, like you said, perfectly said,
Mm.
never 1, 2, 3. Sometimes it just zigzags around.
Yes, yes, it does. I completely understand it. Thank you, Kevin. I think that that will resonate with a lot of people. I know for sure that it resonates with me. I don't have a linear or parabolic journey. It's all over the place. And I like how you said, say yes and volunteer. I think that that has been some of the best advice that I've also received. Don't be scared to say yes to an opportunity. If you end up not liking it, that's information, that's data. That's information you can take in and use later on when making decisions. So thank you again. Now I'd like to tap Shabani again. As someone who has walked your own path and now serves in a leadership role with this work, what final message would you leave with students tonight?
Yeah, so I think especially for the students, you know, this is definitely like a tough field and it's completely normal and honestly encouraged if you have questions, maybe even doubt. I would say this is arguably one of the most crucial fields in the working world.
Mhm.
Like Dr. Odengo mentioned, it's not just like a siloed situation. It's the environment, it's part of the world. So if you do have questions, that's good. And in my perspective, that means you're a compassionate individual and you have certainly taken into consideration all the challenges that come working in this field. Uh, I certainly have had moments throughout the course of my academic career where I've had questions whether or not I should continue pursuing a STEM related major. But deep down, I knew that no other pursuit would have that level of passion and sense of purpose I felt with STEM and healthcare. And that's really how I knew like I had to keep pushing and this was the right field for me. Um, like we mentioned, a lot of the people listening are students, and
Mhm.
I just want to say, like, you are so young and you've barely even hit the tip of the iceberg when it comes to starting a career in STEM or healthcare. I know for me, it was super daunting when I was a student, but even when you do have challenges, don't try to let those moments bog you down because, in the grand scheme of things, they're probably more minuscule than you realize. So with that being said, I think like my biggest thing I want to say to students, early careerists is just know your why, like why you want to pursue this field in the first place. And you can definitely like have situations where you feel imposter syndrome, maybe in the classroom. I've certainly had situations as a student where I felt, oh, maybe someone's smarter than me. But what I've come to learn as I've grown older is that nobody can replicate what I, in particular, have to offer in this field. And ultimately, as long as I know my why, like that's what personally keeps me pushing and continuing in this field. So furthermore, I feel like if this is resonating with you, that's why this field needs more people like you, especially those people who have that level of compassion and genuine interest in the first place. So, yeah, hopefully that resonated with anyone who feels like they're in that sort of situation. Just remember your why. Yeah.
No, I love that. Thank you, Shabani. The why is so important. I think it was Simon Sinek. I've watched that TED talk so many times. It's so, especially when I get like, a case of imposter syndrome. Even now it can happen. It's so great to just go back to like, why am I doing this? Right. But thank you, Shabani, and thank you to all of our panelists. It was so rewarding to take part in this conversation and just hear you guys offer your words of wisdom and your insight and just sharing your time and experience with us. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Annika for a brief reflection before we move into audience Q&A. I see that there are some questions in the chat, so we'll take time to kind of look at some of those. Thank you, Annika.
Yeah, thank you, Santina. And also thank you to our panelists for sharing so openly. All of your messages have been incredibly powerful. I just wanted to remind everyone tonight that it's not a starting, or tonight's a starting point. It's not an end point. And our journeys are shaped by our experiences. And I've been where many of you guys are. There's been so many times where I felt like I didn't belong, but I used that feeling as a fuel to keep going. And especially as a woman in color in an industry where I'm often the only one, I know those moments don't diminish me, my place here, but in fact, I let it deepen it. They strengthen my footing because I know that I do belong here. And even when I'm not seeing representation in the room, I'm holding space for the people that are coming after me. But the one thing I'm taking away for tonight is that belonging doesn't happen by accident. It's built through exposure, encouragement, mentorship, and even like the institutions that choose to create pathways. And I hope that you guys can all resonate with that as well. But with that, I'm going to turn it back to Santina to lead us through the audience Q&A.
All right. Well, thank you again. And before we kind of get into some of these questions, Annika, please help me go through the chat if you can.
Yes.
To see choose some of these questions for our panelists. But I wanted to take the time to thank our audience. Thank you guys for taking the time, not just to hear us, but to invest in your future. That is so great because one piece of advice I would offer is to be intentional. Be intentional with your time, be intentional with your decisions, be intentional with your dreams and your goals and aspirations. And being here and showing up and, looking for resources is just the way to do that. So you're already doing a great job in that. And I also just want to remind you guys to join our movement, Voices Shaping the Future. I think Dr. Johnson added that hashtag into the chat. So, if you learned anything tonight, make sure you go and share that information. And then also, we have our scholarship application is now open. So please, look for that. That could be very useful. So Annika, did you see a question in the chat that you want us to start with?
Yes. Apologies. I'm just gonna go off camera here. But okay, so starting off, I see that Dr. Stacy Johnson, she shared what are
That's
some
a great question.
strategies that you can share with us when you've hit that point of feeling of overwhelmed, defeated on your journey, and what are methods not to give up but to push forward?
So I'm gonna ask one of our panelists to volunteer. So again, that question is like, what are some strategies that you've used when you've hit like a wall? Dr. Odingo, would you want to take a shot at this? Like, what do you do when you're feeling overwhelmed or defeated on your journey?
First and foremost, I think acknowledge that you're just overwhelmed. Just accepting that I am overwhelmed and I need help. It's one thing that many of us don't really, use well or strategically, but it's a very good starting point because learning is an everyday opportunity. It never ends. I am having my PhD, but I'm still learning a lot. I learn a lot each and every day. And sometimes you learn things you've never known, even though you're at a very higher level. So, first and foremost, just acknowledge that you are overwhelmed and you need help. And when you do that, that's when now you create opportunities to say, okay, so how can we help you? And with that, you now create a space for people to really find a way to, to provide the support. Is it mentorship? Is it coaching that you need? Is it immersing you somewhere to really learn these techniques and those strategies of how to really navigate some of these complex issues? And Santina, just give me an opportunity. I just wanted to share a very critical example that I missed to mention way earlier, that my daughter is a senior. She's going to college in the fall. And when she was a junior, she came and told me, initially she wanted to get into healthcare and STEM. And she told me, Mom, I no longer want to do healthcare or anything to do with, with the sciences. I want to become a lawyer. I was like, oh, okay. So why did you change your mind? It's like, no, I feel I talk a lot. I just want to become a lawyer. Interesting. Then I paused as a parent. I said, okay, now, what do I do to convince her that I think there are greater opportunities too in getting into healthcare and into STEM? And I thought about it and I shared with the parent. I said, she works at MedStar. I said, okay, do you have any programs? Because one of the fears that my daughter had raised was that she's scared of blood. That is also another bigger thing that limits people from just getting into healthcare. So I was like, she's scared of blood. And I honestly do not know how to convince her otherwise because she's really scared. And I would love for her to just make the right choices before she finally, knows what trajectory she's going to take. And then she told me, fine, we have some volunteer programs actually at MedStar. If she's 16 or 17, she can apply for these volunteer programs. Let her come, try it out. Let her be within that space, engage, interact with people who are already practicing, and then learn the environment, and then she can make her choice. And that was the best decision I ever got from a fellow parent, because with her getting into that space, after 2 weeks, she told me, oh, Mom, just to let you know, I just want to do medicine now. That is it, because she had the space to learn that it's actually not complex. These are things that are just part of who we are every time. So really creating spaces for people to know that it's doable, I think, is one great opportunity that we should always think of. I'm overwhelmed. Create that space to mentor, talk to, use all spaces, the channels, the movements we are creating to support our people to know that we belong in each and every space, and it's actually doable.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dingo. That's so much wisdom. That's so much encouragement. That's just so true. Thank you so much. Kennedy, I wanted to tap you as well, and ask you, like, just any other advice or strategies that you have as well.
Yes, so this is a really good question because this is something I'm going through right now. Like it's currently final season at Rutgers, so
Oh,
I'm very, very overwhelmed. So I sometimes what I like to do is I actually did research on this, like about burnout for women in STEM. And I think one of the things that I learned most throughout my research was how, we need to feel supported. And so I try to lean into like support from my family, my advisors, even my friends. Like sometimes I try to like go on a walk or something and like really clear my head and just kind of remember like at least, in terms of school, like these are things that I've seen throughout the semester. And this is stuff that I know it's just about really putting it into practice. And I think, in general, a lot of things like when we're learning, um, like it can be difficult to like really grasp certain things and like just apply it. Like it can get frustrating. I think sometimes just starting the task is intimidating, but like one of my academic coaches was telling me like, use a 2-minute rule, like spend 2 minutes just setting yourself up and then after you set yourself up, kind of give yourself a second and then do another 2 minutes of just like doing the actual task. But like another thing that I've started to do today specifically was writing down a list of things I have to do for the day. And it kind of makes it less intimidating. And then when you actually finish doing it, you get to like cross it off. And I feel like it's very satisfying. And it's like, I did my part. And I'm also very faithful. So I love to pray. And sometimes I like get my
mhm.
mom or my grandmother to pray with me and just like really take that weight off my shoulders because, sometimes you just have to let it go a little bit and just kind of come back to it and just kind of give yourself like a deep breath. And yeah, that's something I'm learning. Like also think it's okay to ask for help as well. Like sometimes I think like as Black women too, like it's hard for us to feel supported. So I think like asking for help is also very important.
Awesome. And I want to also get Krisha. I want, if you have anything to add, I wanted to get your feedback on like when things get overwhelming or if they're new, like you're a first time student, you haven't been exposed to this. Like, what do you do when you're overwhelmed and you're facing, just unknowns, opportunities, stress? Not all stress is, because of bad things. Like, what advice or strategies would you like to suggest to the audience?
I will say that a lot of the students actually come to me when
Ah,
when they feel defeated. So, going
mhm.
to someone who you do see yourself as you go to your role model, your mentor, your advisor, your teacher, going to someone you feel safe with. So a lot of students will come to my office and just say, "Hey, I think I failed this course." And I really walk them through it and say, "Okay, you did. Now, how can we move forward?" Like, yes, this is terrible, but it's really going to back to what Shabani said. Like, let's go to your why. Let's go to, do you really want to become a nurse? Is this what you want? And kind of remembering where this all started. And is this the journey that you want? And I will kind of share my story and my
Mhm.
struggle and just having somebody to lean on at the same, hearing that struggle and hearing that that person accomplished, even though they struggled the same way, can help. So just finding that connection and, leaning to someone who can kind of guide you and show you that, there is a door of opportunity at the end and, light at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know we're short on time, but I did want to touch on one of the Q&A questions from Kaden Clark. Thank you, Christian, for your answer because it kind of answered it for me. But have you Kaden Clark asked, have you ever been in a, work environment or an academic environment where there was a lack of representation or diversity? And then how did you kind of advocate for more or how did you kind of navigate that? And I'll answer this from my personal experience. I kind of did what Krisha's students did. I found a safe space. One, before I could advocate for more, I had to find a place where I was safe, find a place where I could, like, yes, I'm different here. Yes. But what does that mean? How do I, start something? Or how do I find, a place where I can feel more comfortable? And I would start there, because not every setting will allow advocacy. And just to be completely honest, I think that you have to find a way, like, I think it was Kennedy, one of our panelists said it wasn't necessarily about belonging, but it was finding the confidence within yourself to exist where you were. And I think that if you're able to do that, if you're able to gain your ground, if you're able to get that to be resolved in that, you can then start to build when the opportunity presents itself. So prepare yourself first, believe that you belong first, because you didn't get there by accident, right? Imposter syndrome is loud, but reality is louder. You're there for a reason. And so just remember that, because I know there are lots of fields, engineering, STEM in general, where we will often feel like we're not belong, or the system wasn't built for us. The system was built for us because it was built by us, all of us. So just remember that. Remember your why. Remember that you do belong. Find people, find a place where you feel safe. And if you can't find a place, you can always come back here. Remember that we're not just here to give you advice. We're not just here to talk about our stories. We're also here to be a sounding board and a resource for you in the future as well. So that's what it means when we say join our movement. We're not just here for this webinar. You can reach out and contact us for different things in the future as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Annika, who will, I think, wrap us up and give it back to Dr. Johnson.
Yes. Well, thank you guys all for sharing. I think, like you said, tonight the conversation still doesn't stop here. Please join our movement. Santina and I can drop our emails, and even all the other members of our institute. If you ever need someone to reach out to, network with, talk to, find that safe space. Because again, we've all had these experiences. You're not the only one in life. So if there's any other advice, or even if you just wanted to talk it, please feel free to reach out to us, because this is an important conversation and we need to continue this conversation and advocating it for the future and the people who come after us. But yeah, so just wanted to, yes, our social media. So please add us on there, and don't be a stranger. Reach out anytime. But thank you guys for joining. I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Sherri Johnson to close us out.
1 second, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to, before we close this out, I wanted to hand it back over to you. I wanted to say thank you to Dr. Sherri Johnson. Thank you for creating the Institute. Thank you for letting your experience and your exposure be a legacy for all of us. So thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Well, thank you so much. Just wow. Wow. I'm full. I really am. Thank you so much to our panelists for your honesty, your wisdom, and the generosity you brought to this conversation tonight. Each of you reminded us that pathways are not built alone. They're built through the people who show up, who share their stories and mentor those that are coming behind them. And you are doing just that. I want to thank Annika and Santina for guiding us through. You did a wonderful job. Thank you to everyone in the audience for spending this hour with us. And before we close, 3 things to take with you. First, as our board chair and vice chair mentioned earlier, applications for our 2026 scholarships are now open. We're awarding scholarships in 3 areas: nursing, STEM, and public service. And if you know a college-bound high school senior or recent graduate from a community that has faced barriers to opportunity, please share the application with them. The link is there in the chat. Second, mark your calendars for September 12th, 2026. And that is the date of our 10th anniversary gratitude gala. Yes, 10 years in July. And so we will have our gala at the University of Maryland, College Park, where we will honor this year's scholars. And we will also recognize leaders shaping the future of equity in health and education. So we are honoring teachers and educators as well as healthcare professionals. Sponsorship and ticket information will be available soon. And third, let's keep this conversation going. So if you have taken any screenshots or any media from this evening, share our hashtag with it. Voices Shaping the Future and hashtag Institute for Equity. We put that in the chat as well. The voices you heard tonight deserve to reach the next room. Thank you again, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.